Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Alberta News and Views. You have got to check out this clip with Justin Trudeau's health minister minion, Mark Holland. He was asked what his views are on the collapsing Trudeau government. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, did you know that five chiefs of staff are set to leave the Trudeau government? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is contending with an exodus of senior staff just as the minority Liberals are returning to a precarious position in the House of Commons, having lost the automatic support of the New Democratic Party. 5 of his 38 ministers are losing their chiefs of staff in quick succession, with several already gone, including the top advisors at Global Affairs, Heritage, Environment, National Revenue, and Mental Health and Addictions, according to 6 Liberal sources who each confirmed some of the names of those that are leaving. Check this out.
Go ahead, Marina.
Hi there, Minister Holland. Thanks for taking our questions today. Firstly, your National Caucus meeting is coming after months of MPs asking for one, and now it seems that many are not showing up at all. Several chiefs of staffs of ministers have also quit their jobs recently. So what, if anything, do you do to counter what seems to be a lack of enthusiasm in your party?
Well, Marina, thanks for the question. I'm on my way to Nanaimo right after this. I've been to just about every Liberal caucus meeting since 2004. Sometimes people don't come because they have other commitments. I don't sense that lack of enthusiasm at all. I've run this will be my 8th federal election. I can tell you that the consequences and the impact of this election have never been more large. I have never been stopped more as I travel across the country for people to say they're deeply worried about what they might lose or what the Conservative cuts might portend. And so we're moving towards a real conversation about what this country is about. And I think today is a great example of that. There will be a choice sometime over the next year about the kind of country we have. It'll be a question about whether or not all people have access to dental care or not. It'll be a question of whether or not we continue to build a national pharmacare program and where every single person who needs access to life-saving medication like diabetes and contraceptives can or not. Look, it's easy to criticize, and certainly Mr. Poilievre has done that well. But I have certainly never been more motivated in my life over 8 elections to counter what he would seek to do to this country. And I think the stark is enormous, the contrast is enormously stark. So, for my part and for the part of the folks I talk to, we're ready to do the work of this country, and then we're ready to adjudicate what kind of country we should have in the future, and we're welcoming that debate.
You know, what all of these failed governments have in common around the globe is they keep on saying this next election is going to be the most important election of our lifetime because people are more divided and angrier than ever. And I just find it so strange that these journalists don't stop them and say, whoa, hold up. Why are civilians, why are regular, hardworking, middle-class people so divided and so angry? What has happened in Canada, 9 years to bring this to the table? What has happened that made us so divided and so angry at government? And why and how do they not know that it is them? It is them themselves that is making us angry. We want an election. All of these questions are not being answered, and very basic questions that get to the root cause. But yet they refuse to talk about it and ask it. And that is what is driving us apart. That is what is dividing us and making us so angry. And it is extremely frustrating that these are our experts, these politicians, all of these heads of policy are just oblivious, absolutely oblivious. And if they know what's going on, then they are just ignorant and they do not care at all. continuing on, there's more.
Just following up, when the NDP and the Liberals had this deal in effect, they had demands on you as a health minister for programs they wanted. The Bloc now seems prepared to prop up this government on confidence votes if its demands are met. So I wanted to ask, have you or other ministers heard from the Bloc yet with any specific demands?
Well, look, I'm talking to the Bloc all the time and to the New Democrats. Unfortunately, conversations with the Conservatives haven't been productive. They're mostly focused on politics and trying to cause an election. Look, we have an election every 4 years. That's what's supposed to be happening. In the intervening period of time, people have an expectation for us to get the business of the country done. We still have over a year left to get things done. And I think people expect us to be focused on the work of the nation. And to me, that means passing legislation. That means improving conditions for people. It means advancing some of the programs that I talked about. So we're willing and ready, where priorities are shared, to continue that work. And I think to other parties who are pining for an election, they have to ask, well, what's their end game here? I think it seems to be more about serving their interests than Canadians' interests. And that's really what we try to wake up, and I try to do every morning, is ask, what can I do? I get the extraordinary privilege and weight of being the health minister of this country. How can I work with my provincial and territorial colleagues, my parliamentary colleagues, to try to make things a little better? And I think that's where we should be squarely focused. And if there are parties that want to pass legislation where we have shared priorities and things can be made better, then of course we're willing to work with them. But those conversations are always happening, and were happening in absence of a happening even when the supply and confidence agreement was happening.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. 80% of Canadians want an election. He is ignoring that. He is ignoring that and pretending that that the vast majority of us don't want an election. That he thinks that Canadians want him to keep on to go to work. We're going to keep on going to work for Canadians. That's what they keep on regurgitating. We're going to get things done. Get what done? Nobody is asking for them to do anything. We want them to just resign. There is so much corruption and so many scandals and so many committees that are still unfolding. The Green Slush Fund. Millions of dollars stolen. We don't want them to do anything because they have made Canadians more divided and more angrier than ever. Continuing on, Mark Carney joins the Liberals' Economic Growth Task Force. I should say Mark Carbon Tax Carney joins Liberals' Economic Growth Task Force. The Liberal government is so financially illiterate and doomed. They're bringing in the big guns that the globalists have. They're sending in Mark Carney to fix the finances of this failed government and now failed country. Give me a break. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has tapped Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, to chair the Liberal Party task force, whatever that is. It is unreal. He will chair a Liberal task force on economic growth, the party announced on Monday. He's babysitting, is what he is doing. He is dealing with a government that has collapsed. Yes, everybody. The Canadian government is collapsing right now, and they refuse to have an election. That is what is going on right now. Instead, they're going to get the work done and keep on fighting for Canadians. They're going to step up. It's unreal that we have to deal with this. Here is a great clip of Mark Carney and what Canadians can expect when he replaces Justin Trudeau now or after the next election. Either way, he is dealing with a heaping dumpster fire that used to be the Liberal Party of Canada, hoping he can bring it back and give it some respect again. But listen closely to what he is talking about He is Justin Trudeau, but with a brain.
The G20 was a little bit of a doldrum because we didn't get some of the pledges that a lot of people were hoping for. What does it mean for your expectations for COP26?
Well, I think a couple of things. I'm going to quote the Secretary General's: hopes unfulfilled but not yet buried. The 1.5 degrees anchor in the G20 communique is significant. Some progress, but we've got a lot of work to do. The big question for this week, at least for this Wednesday, is what can finance, and more specifically the private financial sector, what can it do to help solve this problem? So it's going to really have to step up, and there's been a lot of institutions, a lot of people around the world who've been working in order to do that.
Yeah, we don't even have a price on carbon yet. When will we get that?
Well, we don't have a price on carbon, but what I think our message on Wednesday to world leaders, to policymakers, to business people around the world is finance is going to be there, and finance is going to be there in two respects. One, we've retooled the financial system. We've changed the plumbing, if you will, the financial system, a bunch of very worthy reforms that actually, to be honest, only the audience of Bloomberg would fully understand and appreciate, and we can go through them for the next hour. But, think mandatory disclosure, think stress testing, all that. So part of it is retooling, but then it's also about financial institutions stepping up and saying that they are going to finance this transition, this enormous $100 trillion transition that needs to happen over the next 3 decades. They're going to finance it, and they're going to mark their own homework. They're going to show up year in, year out, say what their emissions are of their clients, have specific strategies for reducing carbon, fair share of 50% down by 2030. That's what the Glasgow Financial Alliance is all about.
Why not stop actually putting money into fossil fuel, full stop, instead of talking about the transition?
Well, we're living through problems with the transition right now in terms of we have both far too many fossil fuels in the world. We're going to have enormous stranded assets, half of gas, 3/4 of coal, etc. Maybe up as much as half of oil reserves, proven reserves, need to stay in the ground if we're going to get to where we are. But we also have local short-term shortages of some of those exact materials. We're here in the UK, there's a shortage of the storage of gas. So there needs to be only some limited financing for a transition, but only for a transition, which is why you need things like GFANs that are relentlessly, ruthlessly, absolutely focused on that transition to net zero. And not just any transition, a 1.5 degree transition, which is what G20 leaders signed off on yesterday.
But the G20 leaders didn't stop, for example, coal from being used domestically.
Yeah. And
so we're doing progress, but we're going at it slowly.
Well, we're doing progress. We need to accelerate it. We need to recognize there's differences, and as there obviously are, between advanced economies, developing economies. Some of those, there's a different timeline for fully ending coal. We want to stop coal, not just new coal, but stop use of coal by 2030 in the advanced economies. That's what Powering Past Coal, which is a big element of COP26, is about. But also by the end of the next decade in the emerging developing world. And if I may, again, to bring it back to finance, to give them the confidence to do that, they need to see literally a wall of money that's available for their transition. So when they're building up alternative energy, that the money is going to be there.
$100 trillion in 3 decades. And what he said is, in order for companies to get on board, they need to be subsidized. The only way they're going to get subsidized is with taxpayer dollars. But that's not actually what's going on. They're just printing money. They have all these different forms of money because money actually isn't real. It's just digits now. That's all this is. That's all this game is. So they're going to print and print and print up to $100 trillion over the next 3 decades. And then they're going to create another fake monetary system with green credits, and China just signed on to get on board with the green credits and stuff like that. That's a whole other conversation altogether. There are so many different levels to what is going on, but the main reason why all of this is going on is you have to create destabilization and then infiltration. This transition, in his words, must happen. It is inevitable. The only way that you can get a whole globe to transition into something new is to completely get rid of the old. So they provide the finances, $100 trillion, 3 decades, to all of these huge companies to implement it. And then if people are angry about it, doesn't matter. They are so distracted right now with education, healthcare, immigration, finances, you name it. That's what's going on with us. And this transition is what's going on with them. Follow me on Substack and Spotify. All of you out there, like, share, and take care.